You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, welcome in. First halftime show, Locked On Cardinals. I will be with you every single halftime for the entirety of the 2022 NFL season. I'm your host, Clancy. Follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Thanks for joining at Twitter Spaces, YouTube, etc. Lot to unpack from the first half. Okay, let's get the not so pleasant stuff out of the way first, because I saw some positives here, even though it didn't seem like there was a whole lot to bank on moving forward for the 2022 season. Let's just talk about the negative stuff first, okay, so we can get it out of the way. First, time of possession. I said one of the important things for the Cardinals to be able to do is run the ball effectively, lead with the run, keep Patrick Mahomes on the sideline as much as possible. And that didn't happen. You know, the Chiefs were on the field for 9 possible 30 minutes. And they pretty much had their way with the Cardinals defense. Period. They pretty much had their way with the Cardinals defense. Period. The Cardinals were given a couple opportunities, especially with the Juju Smith-Schuster fumble. And then the Cardinals proceeded to gain 6 yards, I believe, and go for it on fourth down instead of understanding that they couldn't stop the Chiefs defense, period. And instead of kicking the field goal, long field goal, or punting the ball, they decided to go for it. Kyler Murray threw the ball away, and the Chiefs came down and tacked on an extra field goal to lead 23-7 in the first half. Unfortunately, there's a couple things that are just unfortunate. One, Isaiah Simmons can't defend in coverage like they're expecting him to. Travis Kelce burned him. He was burned another time. Zaven Collins is completely lost. And, you know, Marco Wilson has actually not played terribly in the first half. Byron Murphy recovered the fumble. You know, Budda Baker's had a couple nice tackles in space, one for loss. But all in all, Clyde Edwards-Helaire looks like an all-pro running back. Juju Smith-Schuster has just walked in to that wide receiver one-ish role, and he's had a bunch of yards and a bunch of catches in the first half, even though we did have the fumble. Travis Kelce's got a touchdown. Patrick Mahomes looks unbothered, even though I think there was the report that he had an issue with his left hand, looking like maybe potentially a sprain of some sort that was sustained when Marcus Golden got to him. Wasn't a sack, but got to him late. The things to unpack here, unfortunately, defensively, is really the focal point. And I know anybody that's watched the game will mirror that sentiment. It just seems like the Cardinals don't have enough starting caliber NFL players on defense with the team is currently constructed. I understand J.J. Watt's out. Okay. Myjai Sanders out. But you're looking at Ezekiel Turner and Devon Kennard and Marcus Golden and Dennis Gardeck. Dennis Gardeck had the great punch on the fumble. But my three main things that the Cardinals needed to do in an effort to get a W or an effort to stay competitive today was be able to facilitate a strong run game, bleed some clock, have Patty Mahomes on the sidelines a little bit, you know, as much as you'd like to see him there, and just have sustained drives down the field. That didn't happen. James Conner did get the touchdown, set up by a nice chunk run by Kyler Murray on a fantastic play call by Cliff Kingsbury with the designed quarterback draw out of shotgun. That was the bright spot. The other two things that I said the Cardinals needed to do, one was disrupt Patrick Mahomes. They're getting into his kitchen, and I've discussed all week, getting into his kitchen, getting behind the line of scrimmage is not the same as disrupting a game plan. Because what we know about the Chiefs is, even though they don't have Tyreek Hill anymore, they've got guys. It doesn't matter who's wearing the jersey. It doesn't matter who's wearing the jersey. Somebody's going to be open, and they're either really fast or really great route runners or both, and the Cardinals just don't have enough capacity to defend all of them. You've got Zaven Collins and Isaiah Simmons in coverage. Marcus Golden dropped back in coverage in a play where the Cardinals gave up a chunk gain. Like, the issue I have is this is where we left off last year. And that's the thing that frustrates me, because there is greatness on this team in parts, in bursts, but sustainability for a high level of play on the defensive side of the ball is something that's lacking right now. Now, that's not to say that was the first half, okay? First half of the NFL, of the 2022 NFL season. They got the cobwebs off. Nobody really played meaningful snaps. Zaven Collins only played a handful of series. Marco Wilson only played a handful of series on defense. Nobody else really played. So we could say that's a perfect storm of getting the cobwebs off, J.J. Watt being out, and it being Patrick Mahomes. So if you want to lend to think that, that's fine. That's passable. I'll allow it. But if this is going to be a 46-21 final for the Cardinals, there are going to be serious conversations that need to be had immediately. One of which, and I said this pretty much since the beginning of the offseason, when things started to look like the defense wasn't going to be helped as much as it should, is Vance Joseph is in line to become the scapegoat if things don't work. I got called crazy. I said that's not going to happen. They're going to set him up. You tell me. You tell me who looks the worst right now. And it's Vance Joseph, and it's not his fault. Now let's move to the offensive side of the ball. There are more, positive things to discuss about the offense. In that one sustained drive of over 5 minutes, the Cardinals look great. Ended it in touchdown. The other drives I think all of them have been under 2 minutes. And that's a bugaboo that's happened from last season and the year before. Quick 3 and outs, or quick first down, then 3 and outs. And that's what we're seeing right now, and it can't happen. This defense isn't a top 10 defense in the NFL. Cliff Kingsbury is not figuring out how to get drives when they need them. The fact that the Cardinals had the ball on the other side of the 50 and targeted Greg Dortch twice and Andy Isabella once. You have Hollywood Brown on the field. You have Zach Ertz. You have A.J. Green. Where did all the wide receivers go? Rondale Moore was looked to be a fantasy football darling, but would you really expect him? Like, if Rondale Moore was playing today, would the offense be that much better? You could say yes, but he's not DeAndre Hopkins. Yes, DeAndre Hopkins is out. You brought Hollywood Brown in to be a wide receiver one. Throw him the ball. Get him in space. Yes, it's on Kyler Murray in some capacity, of course. But Kyler Murray has shown me more to trust than Cliff Kingsbury. And this second half is going to be about the intestinal fortitude and the Kajingas of Cliff Kingsbury and this offense. They need to, they got to put up touchdowns and hold the Chiefs to field goals. That's how this game turns for the Cardinals. And it's going to start with their first possession. If the Cardinals go 3 and out in their first possession, we are looking at week 12 of last year all over again. This is the most pressure Cliff Kingsbury's ever had as a head coach today. Because what we saw last year was 10-2, great start. Okay, we saw what this roster was capable of. And the defense had a big part in that as well. But down the stretch, it was kind of like, well, they're going to make the playoffs, and that's good enough for this year. Right now is where Cliff Kingsbury can show, you know what? I've got it covered. So not all is lost. This is week 1. It's the first half of week 1. The only problem is it doesn't get easier from here. So if the Cardinals can put together a score, a stop, and drive to keep this game close, there's a lot more football to be played today. But it's got to happen immediately, and it's got to happen immediately. They're only down 2 scores. They're down 16 points. This is what Kyler Murray does. Remember Cliff Kingsbury's rookie year? Said, I thought I was going to get fired at halftime. Cliff did against Detroit when Detroit laughed him out of the building in 2019, and Kyler Murray came back. Not all is lost. And what we're looking at, yes, wasn't the greatest first half, okay? But let's not start burning the Cardinals jerseys just yet. You've got Kyler Murray. Look at the rest of the NFL that we've seen today. How many bad quarterbacks there are. Now, Hollywood Brown needs to be a focal point in the second half. You've got to force the hand. Make Kansas City double him. Open up room for Zach Ertz, even though I know he's hobbled. Bring in the other running backs. James Conner doesn't have to be the only guy. Get weird. because you've got nothing to lose at this point except for everything. Like, go do it. Open the playbook. Keep them guessing. Cliff Kingsbury's biggest issue as a head coach is he cannot adjust when he needs to. Well, if he doesn't adjust now, the Cardinals are going to lose 44-7, and we're going to look at the entire offseason as a potential, sham's not the right word, but as a potential misnomer for what was expected to happen come week 1. I'm Alex Clancy. Listen, I've been thinking all game, how do I pivot this into something positive? How do I do it? Greg Dortch looked good. He stopped a potential interception, okay, even though it ended up being an incomplete pass. Hollywood Brown went in space. Looks like he's a guy. Okay? Looks like he just walked in and was like, all right, now you know what? What do you do to that? What did Aaron Rodgers do with Devontae Adams? What does every quarterback do with their number one receiver? Feed him. Feed him. And this is on Cliff Kingsbury to figure out how the hell to get Marquise Brown open in the second half. Marquise Brown should have 10 targets in the second half. 10. Do it. You know why? Because whatever they did in the first half wasn't working. The interior of the offensive line, still an issue. And I will say, because the second half is about to start, I need to clarify something quickly. I never said when I went nuts for when they traded for Hollywood Brown on draft night, first round, it's never been about trading for Hollywood Brown. It was passing up the opportunity to draft a young player at a position of impact, a position of need, interior offensive line, edge rush, corner, interior defensive line. All 4 of those positions were exposed during the first half of the week 1 season of week 1 for the Arizona Cardinals. That's what's frustrating. Let's see if the Cardinals can turn it around. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for being on Teams or on YouTube with me, on Twitter Spaces. I will be back at the end of the game. Nightingale Sunset, I told you, that's a hipster band name. I'm not going to answer that question. I still set for 11 wins. I don't want to talk about it yet. We'll talk about it later. Join me for the post-game reaction podcast immediately after the game. I'll be doing it live. Bring your questions. Bring your comments. I'll be with you. Alex Clancy, Locked on Cardinals. Enjoy the second half. Hopefully it's a little bit more